Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
Welcome to the Daily Cash Flow. My name's George Robson.
Welcome to the Daily Robson. I'm George Cashflow. Sorry, welcome to Daily Cash Flow. I'm Peter Siegel.
I think we should rename it for that. That sounds good to me.
The Daily George?
Yeah, the Daily George.
Robson.
Yeah, Daily Robson. I'm down with that.
All right.
How you been, Peter?
I've been well.
Yeah.
String of nice weather over the past week.
Yeah.
Had some good outdoor time.
You know I love the sunshine.
Good for the soul. You do like the sunshine because you're a flower.
Yes, indeed.
George.
Yeah, yeah.
Did some nice blossoming this past week.
Yeah. So today I want to start off talking about something we've talked about a little bit about before, talking about suburban rents on the rise. It's something that we've kind of touched on, but it just keeps going. It's just a constant thing this year, and I was wondering if you wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Well, I've been waiting for this moment in our economic cycle to occur. You recall that back in 2008, when that economic crisis happened, there were widespread defaults on homeowners with their mortgages on their single-family homes. Yeah. And there were portfolios of thousands and thousands of single-family home properties that went into default that were taken back by the banks. And what was happening behind the scenes on Wall Street is that there was huge swaths of private equity and hedge funds that were coming in and buying up these large portfolios of non-performing or defaulted loans backed by these single-family homes. So they foreclosed on all these homes once they bought them. They now own these homes. What are they going to do? They have to rent them out. So imagine for a second that you're a private equity fund or a hedge fund on Wall Street, and you now have just taken control of and purchased a portfolio of 5,000 single-family homes spread out across places like California, Nevada, Arizona. I mean, these were the places where it was happening very frequently and the most. And what are you going to do? You got to rent it out. You have to have boots on the ground, people that can search for applicants and tenants, write leases, hand over keys to someone, and collect rent. It's a big property management logistical issue that had to be solved. And these private equity funds and hedge funds sort of suffered through it in the early years, 09, 10, 11, 12, 13. Right now we're in 2020 going to 2021. They've got these portfolios under wraps, under management, with tenants in place paying rent. A pandemic hits. All these homes are in these suburban areas, so they're not in densely populated urban centers, which we've already identified as been suffering rent-wise. But they're in these suburban areas where there's a big flock to these areas. There's lots of demand. People want a house with a yard. They want a home office because they don't have to go to a work office. People are living in these homes. They're paying rents that are incrementally increasing year over year and have been for the past 10 years. And now we're in this pandemic. There's nowhere else for them to go. If they want the space and the yard, I mean, a lot of these people are earning, they're working still, so they're just going to pay up. And the rents that they're getting at these places are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% increases year over year, sometimes more, depending on the market you're in. So the question then becomes, why does this keep happening? Is it because of the pandemic? Is it amplified by the pandemic? What is someone to do if you're a renter of a home that's owned by one of these big private equity funds that has thousands and thousands of single-family homes that they picked up from the 2008 crisis? What do you do? And the answer is the same as really if you're any other person consuming any other product in any other marketplace. You have to assess your options, see what your choices are. If there's an affordable alternative, maybe you pursue it. If there's not, maybe you stay put. But I think that any way you slice it, we are in a long-term economic trajectory where it's renter nation. We're in renter mode as a country, as a population. There's going to be more renters than home buyers. And as a result of that, you're going to see demand for rental product, single family homes, apartment buildings, luxury, mid-price, whatever it is. You're going to see demand for rental product spike constantly, I think for the foreseeable future. 10, 20 years out, I'm going as far as 20 years out, I think that there's going to be a upward trajectory for rental demand and increasing rents. And it's an interesting issue. We know that not everybody's working, not everybody's making enough money to pay rent. And we know that people still want to buy homes. That's becoming more difficult to do. Renting's becoming more expensive.
I mean, this kind of goes back a little bit to what we touched on last week about letting people build. If supply is necessary,
In these supply-constrained areas that have typically had affordability issues due to a lack of building, but where there is land available to build, the governments need to find a way to unlock the doors and build their way out of it for a little bit. There needs to be more supply. Supply and demand with everything. If you increase the supply, the demand will absorb into that supply and you'll see pricing leveling out or maybe even decreasing depending on the market you're in. But you have to have more supply to feed the demand. Without more supply, the demand is just going to create rising economics for those consumers paying for those goods or services.
Right, which is what we're seeing.
In this case, rents. But yeah, the suburbs are, look, we all know that everyone's left the cities to go to the suburbs, to go to resort towns, coastal areas, mountain areas, wooded areas. I mean, that's where people have decided to live over the past 8 months during the pandemic. And I think that that's going to continue. And a lot of these homes that these big portfolio purchasers bought 10 years ago and 11 years ago are in these areas.
Right.
So my favorite story is emblematic of what I'm trying to talk about. Is there was an infamous news piece done on a stripper who had like a portfolio of single-family home rental properties. So this woman was...
This is back in 2008?
Yeah, I mean, she was entrepreneurial, she was smart, she seemed like she was doing the right thing. She was taking money she was making, dancing at the club, buying this real estate. She's buying these single-family homes. I think maybe that is going to be what I consider the downfall of this story and maybe her bad decision, because you're buying a portfolio of single-tenant, detached, single-family homes. Never a great investment from my perspective because you have no economies, you have no hedge against risk, vacancies, all that stuff will just slam you. So she's buying single-family homes with her earnings from dancing at the club. She wakes up one day, she's got like 8 or 10 of these things. The bank kept on giving her mortgages. And she was like, oh, I'm doing the right thing. I'm buying real estate. I'm buying a house. I can rent it out. Isn't that great? And, maybe on paper at the beginning it was a decent idea for her at the time. It was a bad idea for the banks because there was, the banks for single family homes need 2 forms of collateral. First, the collateral is the house, the real estate that the purchaser is buying. And second is the purchaser themselves, their income stream. That's how a bank will secure, underwrite, and collateralize a loan. Well, if you've got a stripper who makes cash, there's really no income stream to underwrite. It's off the books, it's in cash, who knows what it is. Some weeks it's this much, very high, some weeks it's very low. Is it off season, is it on season? I mean, all those things, it's a cash job. It's very hard to underwrite cash earnings. It's much more standardized, easy and logical for a bank to underwrite W-2 earnings because it's on the books and it's documented and we can see the income stream and the regularity of the income stream. But unfortunately for her, she was, or fortunately for her, she was able to get a lot of bank debt to buy these homes. And then she was left with a bunch of homes that weren't rented. She couldn't continue to make mortgage payments. She lost all of it. The banks took it over. So it was a great story because you start off coming out of the gate going, oh wow, isn't this great? You've got a stripper making all this cash, and we all hear these stories about
the American dream.
Yeah, the American dream. We all hear these stories about how these dancers make thousands and thousands of dollars a night, and I'm fascinated by that. I think it's great. They should make as much money as they can, because that market is obviously there to pay them a lot of money to do that. I wouldn't do that job, nor would anybody pay me to do that But in all seriousness, that was a time where the banks were lending without high degrees of standards or protocol for securitizing their loan or underwriting the income of the borrower. And the bank took over, in her case, 10 properties from her. And she's back to square one. The banks are left with these 10 properties. Now they have to rent them out. Now they have to carry them, maintain them, pay the taxes, keep the lights on, keep the heat on so that the pipes don't burst, all of that stuff. Getting back to the original point and your question, you've got owners of large portfolios of single-family homes that are in the suburbs. The suburbs are having a resurgence. They're going to run it like a business. There's high single-digit, double-digit year-over-year rent growth. I mean, you either have to pay the increase or you have to move. Where are you going to move to? You're going to have to come up with either less house at a lower price or a different location, something that might be less convenient for you, less desirable for you. But you're going to have to make a decision. It's all about what your alternatives are. If you've got a housing option, a housing alternative that's better, you'll take it. It's a lot like investing. You'll choose to invest depending on what your investment alternatives are. If you're someone that has a wide range of investment alternatives where you have access to many things, and you're studying the markets and you're an expert in lots of different types of markets, you'll be able to choose lots of different things to fulfill your investment objectives. If you're an investor that doesn't really have a professional level of access, but more a consumer level of access, perhaps your investment alternatives are more narrow and you're going to be left with not so many choices. So I think it's going to be the same for renters and consumers alike.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Another way that COVID has kind of affected businesses that we're seeing a lot of right now is insurance. There's a lot of businesses trying to make claims on insurance at this time during pandemic, and we're hearing about a lot of insurance companies that don't want to pay as a result of that.
I mean, that's one thing that's going on with the insurance markets, and we can talk about that. There's so much happening in the insurance markets right now. In fact, there's never been such a demand for insurance products in history. These insurance companies are overwhelmed with demand for quotes, renewals, and policies. They can't even handle it all. So businesses are making COVID claims. If they have a pandemic that's specifically listed as a peril in their policy, they're going to get paid. A lot of policies don't have that. So now you're left with a whole world of insured, of business owners of all types that are making claims for lost revenue from March through, we're in now November of 2020. And there's no specific inclusion of a pandemic for a covered loss in their policy. So they're either going to get denied because it's not specifically listed, because these insurance policies are written by smart insurance company lawyers that can list the perils individually: flood, fire, earthquake, right? I mean, it's listed. Go look at your policy. What's listed? That's what you're covered for. And so pandemics, for most business owners, are not specifically listed in the policies as a covered peril. So what these business owners are going to end up having to do is either get denied, suck it up and move on, or if they feel like they should get paid, there's going to be lawsuits and either class action or individual lawsuits against the insurance companies where the plaintiffs are going to allege that they're owed money by a policy that should be covering them for losses. I mean, the insurance companies are going to say, hey, there's no physical damage to your property. And the business owner is going to say, what do you mean there's no physical damage? I couldn't open up my doors. Well, that's because the government told you not to open up your doors. That's because of a few things, but it's not because a fire came and burned you down. It's not because an earthquake came and crumbled you. It's not because a flood came and deluged you with water. And so there's going to be a fight there. I'm not sure people are going to win those battles. It's going to be an interesting fight. There's a lot of money on the table because, as we know, a lot of businesses lost out on a lot of revenue from March 2020 till now, and it's going to continue for a little while longer.
Are you seeing any of this kind of interaction in the real estate world at this point?
The multifamily sector isn't going to have losses enough to merit making a claim. So now you're talking about retail and office. If it's in your policy, maybe you can make a claim for loss of rents, but you have to have loss of rents due to a pandemic be a listed peril. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the same position as the people we were just talking about, where you're either going to have to get denied or you're going to have to sue. I don't know that it's going to be worth it for 99% of the claimants out there to get involved with a lawsuit and try and get money when you don't have any money, and lawsuits cost money, and so now you have to figure out a class action or someone who's going to make your case on a contingency basis, and these things take years. How do you have the time, let alone the money, to wait it out to get paid 50, 100, 250, 500, $1 million? I mean, by the time any of this comes to fruition, if you do win, you're going to be a whole generation older.
Yeah, that's totally.
It's a tough spot. With what's happening right now, there's a rush for insurance products. I can't even get renewals on policies that I already have in place. I can't get them quoted until the 11th hour.
Oh, wow.
Now, I know when my expirations are coming because I manage my insurance expirations and my policies, and I know that I've got 4 policies expiring 10/31/2020, another 6 expiring 11/30/2020. So I know ahead of time. So I put out requests for renewal quotes 45, 60 days in advance. I get crickets, man. I get nothing for weeks. And then I got to call up my agent. I got to yell at him. Poor guy, he's got to hear it from me. Where are the renewals? Well, we don't have the renewals. We keep asking. They're sitting on the desk somewhere. They're collecting dust. And then finally, these representatives at the insurance companies get back to you, a day or 2 or 3 ahead of the expiration and say, here's your renewal terms. It's very hard to work like that. There's not a whole lot of alternative right now, and there's a lot of discourse in the insurance markets because insurance companies are trying to force certain things upon the marketplace. The marketplace is fed up with it. So I think that there's going to be a retraction of this at the insurance company level. There's going to be better customer service because I don't know how products are going to be able to be renewed and customers are going to be able to continue to pay. There's big increases that are happening year over year on the same policies without any losses having occurred. I mean, it's crazy what's happening in the insurance markets right now. So if you're in the insurance markets looking for renewals or looking for quotes on fresh business, give yourself time. Factor in human blockage in the supply chain because there's a lot of it. They're so backed up, they don't have enough people to handle all the requests. Give yourself enough time. And I don't mean another day or 2. I mean, if your policy's coming due December 31st, call now. It's November 11th. Yeah. Call now. Yeah. Start the process now because they don't have enough people to deal with it, and it's only going to put you in a position where you have a gun to your head. There's one thing I don't like is operating when there's a gun to my head because I feel pressured, I feel uncomfortable. It's not good for me. I have to rush to make a decision. I don't want to do that. You don't want to do that either.
Yeah, no, that's smart. Yeah. So I have a listener question. It's
from where?
We haven't had it in a while. This one's from Instagram.
The Instagram questions I find to be all over the place because you have a lot of different age groups and demographics. Yeah. And sometimes you get good ones. They're all good. Sometimes you get questions that are well thought out and articulated.
More mature.
Yeah, and other times you can tell when it's somebody's 6-year-old kid.
Right.
And I find the TikTok questions to be more articulate than the lowest of the Instagram.
I think that's true. TikTok, I think it's a very specific set of viewers that you can customize your experience on TikTok so that the people that you're getting questions from are really geared into your material.
You know what I don't understand is the Facebook questions. We don't get many. I think we've had 1 or 2.
I mean, Facebook, it's one of those things,
people are sharing puppies, their coffee that they had, the kids going back to school. There's not much else going on Facebook, is there?
Yeah, a lot of political banter.
But you got to be on Facebook.
Yeah, I think Facebook has this interesting kind of pervasiveness where it's used to sign into things and everyone has one, but
maybe that's what's keeping it alive.
It does seem to be outliving its usefulness in a lot of ways. But I don't know, if Mark Zuckerberg hears this, maybe can switch things up for us.
Okay, so what's the question?
So this question, I think this is probably maybe a younger listener, we'll find out. I get capital appreciation. What about amortization and tax benefits? How do they work in the context of real estate ownership?
I always love that question. I get it a lot. So capital appreciation, as the person said, do we know if it's he or she?
It doesn't say. But
so capital appreciation, obvious. You buy it for less than what you end up selling it for or holding it for in the long term. Amortization, I'm going to put depreciation in there as well. So depreciation and amortization can be understood like this. So we all know that a business can be measured based on the profit it throws off. Profit is income minus expenses, right? So for tax purposes, you get another thing that you get to put in the expenses that you don't really pay for, but you get to put it there so that it lowers the amount of profit that you show on your tax returns. And depreciation is the amount of useful life that you get to write off or deduct from your income as an additional expense. This is called a non-cash expense because you don't really pay cash for depreciation, but yet you get to deduct it as an expense as if you did pay cash for it. You can earn positive cash flow from owning income-producing real estate, but you don't have to pay taxes on a portion or all of that profit that you earn from the real estate because of amortization and depreciation. So real estate income is the least taxable form of income that somebody can earn. So the more real estate income you have, the less you're going to pay in taxes compared to your W-2 income or other types of business income that you can earn. We always talk about the key things that are benefits of owning income-producing real estate. Cash flow, capital appreciation, tax benefits, mortgage interest tax deductions, leverage, right? These are the things that we talk about. So this listener wants to know about how it impacts you. What would you rather earn $100,000 where you have to pay 30 or 40% in taxes? Or would you rather earn $100,000 where you have to pay 0 or 1 or 2% in taxes?
I'll take that. That sounds good.
Right. So you want to know how it impacts you? That's how it impacts you.
What are 3 to 5 hidden fees that impact investments?
Investments always have fees. You have to look at the fine print and really understand what you're getting into. Mutual funds have management fees. They have transaction fees. Stocks have brokerage commissions. You have to pay a broker to transact the stock for you on the way in and on the way out. And whether or not you have a human broker doing that or you do it through your E-Trade account, there's fees associated with all of that. And regarding mutual funds, we're often taught to seek out the lowest fee mutual fund option, but don't conflate low fees in a fund to get in with performance. You want to make sure you're striking a balance between putting your money in any investment, not just in a mutual fund, that performs to your standards and criteria and also has a fee structure that you can live with. I'd rather pay someone a little bit of money and let them profit off of my wanting to participate in the investment, as long as my investment is rocking and performing really, really well, as opposed to paying a high fee and not really getting a lot of performance, or paying a low fee and not getting really a lot of performance. So transaction fees, there's asset management fees. In my business, there's property management fees, there's leasing fees, there's construction management fees. There are all sorts of fees that have to get charged depending on the business and investment that you're putting your money into, because the manager who's overseeing your investment may be doing some of the work themselves. They might be farming off a lot of the functions to third parties. Those third parties will charge the manager or the fund or the property or the investment fees for them to provide their services. So always ask all the various functions that happen in the day-to-day operations of the business. In my business, real estate, we have leasing, construction, repairs and maintenance facilities, oversight and management. How does all of that get paid for? Does it get paid for out of a property management fee? Does it get paid for with a property management fee plus add-ons for certain services at certain levels? A lot of property management companies will not charge the owners of the building or the investors of the building a separate oversight fee for repairs and maintenance if the item costs $300 or $350 and less. But for things over $350, presumably there's more time, there's more phone calls, there's more follow-up, there's more eyeballs that are needed to make it confirm that it was done right. So, always ask those questions, and I'm glad this person asked the question as well. But clearly the transaction fees, the exit fees, the asset management fees, the property management fees, the annual fund a lot of these are funds that charge annual fees regardless of what the performance is. I like fees that are performance-based. If me as the investor does well, you as the manager does well. So those are good situations to look for.
So as always, do your due diligence.
Do your due diligence, but don't be afraid of fees. Fees are okay as long as there's performance. Yeah. Fees without performance, who needs it?
Yeah, no, totally. This is my last question before ZestQuests.
Okay.
How do you set goals for yourself? Is it different than how you set goals for business, and what does that process look like?
No, a goal's a goal.
Yeah. Okay.
If I want to get something done, I get it done. It doesn't matter if it's for me or for my business. First thing I do is I have to identify the goal, quantify it, and measure it. I have to know whether I want to make $1 million next year or $5 million next year. I have to know whether I want to have a vacation that's 2 weeks long versus 8 days long. I have to know, so quantify whatever your goal is, quantify it, make sure it's measurable, quantify it, Second is write it down. It doesn't exist unless you write it down in whatever form. You want to write it on paper, great. You want to put it in Google Calendar, that's what I do, great. Because once it's in my calendar and once I've written it down, it exists in a form. I'm looking at it, I can look at it, I can manage it, I can measure it. It's coming into my eyes, getting into my brain, it's part of my energy flow. So just by having written it down and just by looking at it, I'm going to achieve something. Then I got to get to work. So after you've measured it and quantified it, after you've written it down and made it a part of your daily mindset, you got to go out and get it done. You got to work, man. There's no substitute. So it all comes down to work at the end, but to set goals, you have to know how to measure them and how to quantify them. You know, people will say, oh, I want to be successful. They'll just sort of use that phrase. Well, what does that mean? Right? Quantify it, measure it. Can you give me some examples for you what that means for you?
Right, being more specific with
Yeah.
the goals.
You know, people will say, I want to be happier. What does that mean for you? Let's quantify it. Let's write it down. Let's break it down and unpack that. What does it mean for you? So you have to know how to quantify it and measure it and identify it.
This is going to be a kind of a weird question. Do you always hit your goals? And if you don't, then how do you approach that?
So I understand what you're asking. So I will often set my goals to be larger, in fact, than what I want or need to achieve, so that when I fall short, and inevitably we all fall short many times with many things. So if I want to make $1 million next year, I'm going to make my goal $5 million. So when I fall short and I make 1.6, I'll be psyched because I hit my million plus some. So I always set goals that are more than what I initially set out to achieve. Now, in this example, I wouldn't realistically set a goal for next year to be $200 million when I haven't come close to that yet in any previous year. But I would set a goal that's maybe 3 or 5 or 10x my previous year's goal that I hit. And see if I can come close to that. But always strive for more, so that way when you fall short, you're always going to be happy with what you did.
Do you have any business ideas that you wish that you had come up with or that you particularly admire?
I mean, every Facebook or Amazon, you know, Google, wish I came up with that. No, really, I think all these great businesses are in fact great businesses. Businesses that make money, that are a little bit fun, a little bit exciting. I think they're great. I'm in real estate, not a very sexy business, not an historically
innovative,
a cutting edge, culturally cutting edge business, but I like where I'm at. Oddly enough though, as my journey as an entrepreneur my whole life, I've always been thinking of businesses. When I was a kid, I was thinking I used to keep a diary of businesses that I would dream up and think about. I'd write it down and I'd come up with these like mini business plans. I mean, I'm going back as far as 3rd or 4th grade, where I would come up with these concepts and ideas, and some of it manifested itself in school somehow. There's one story that pops in my mind that I'll share with you, and then others just maybe ended up in my notebook and my diary, and that was it. And then others I actually did. So I'll talk about a few of them. While this isn't directly answering your question about businesses that I wish that I had thought of, I'll tell you some that I did think of. In 4th grade, we had an entrepreneur competition. And you know, in 4th grade, you're 9 or 10 years old, whatever you are in 4th grade. And the school was split up into different teams. And our team, we had to come up with an idea for a product and come up with a marketing plan, a name, and you know, price it and slogans and all of that. So at the time, there was a thing that was starting to take off with kids in school. It was like pencils with like this fuzzy colored material glued to the top of the eraser, and you put googly eyes on it, and you go like this, and then the hair goes all crazy, and then you sort of pet the hair back, and it's nice and neat, and you make it crazy again. So the idea that I thought of was one of those, and I thought to call it Wacky Writers. And people really liked that idea, and that was our team's concept in business, and we came up with a whole marketing plan, and we ended up winning the competition in the school. That was a big entrepreneurial moment for me that didn't earn me any money, but it was a lot of fun, taught me a lot. And So that was a fun one, and I just remember that from a young age. And I had every entrepreneurial job in business there was that a lot of people had. I washed cars and boats and set up car washes. I sold T-shirts and came up with T-shirt designs and sold T-shirts and sweatshirts. When I got out of college, I moved to New York City and got into a multi-unit retail business, and it was a branded retail business, and it became very popular very quickly in New York City and Philly and DC and Boston. And from there, I transitioned into real estate full time. But I learned a lot from that business. There was other businesses too. I remember when computers first came out, and I was old enough to really know what was happening with them. I remember learning that you could run out of storage, and so you needed to change your disk or get a larger disk with larger capacity. And I think that perhaps, I'm thinking back to maybe 8th grade, so I'm 14 years old, and I remember thinking, man, a great business would be to have a company that offered and specialized in data storage, so that you could really never run out of storage. You could just hire my company and upload or send me your stuff, and we'll store it forever for some fee. And I remember even thinking when the internet came along that would evolve into what we now know as the cloud. Yeah. So George, what I'm telling you is I think I invented the cloud, but really I didn't. I did nothing with it. It was just an idea. It was in my diary, in my notebook, and it never went any further than that. But I remember that was, and I recently looked at this notebook too, and I saw it there. I said, that was a real good one. If I was only old enough, if I really knew anything about anything, maybe that would have been a path for me. But
well, and that goes back to execution. That ideas are great.
Ideas are great, but without a jockey to bet on, without someone driving the ship, you got nothing. We don't need more ideas. We need people that can execute. Yeah. So that's good. Thank you for bringing that up.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, ZestQuest, Peter?
Please.
All right, so Thanksgiving's coming up. So first ZestQuest, what is your favorite Thanksgiving food?
George.
I'm starting light.
It's my favorite Thanksgiving food?
I'm starting light.
Oh, George. George. You had a
Di Lorenzo's tomato pies?
We do Di Lorenzo's tomato pies on Friday.
Okay.
Thanksgiving Friday, or Thanksgiving Wednesday, but typically Thanksgiving Friday, because Sammy's nice enough to stay open that night and make pies. And like we need it the day after Thanksgiving. I mean, we're such fat asses after Thanksgiving Day that we then go and have pizza the next day. But that's Friday. Thanksgiving is usually a massive multi-chef home-cooked meal between my mom, my wife, my sister-in-laws, and my nieces and nephews. We all chip in and do different things, and it's dinner for like 20, but we make dinner for 200, and it's.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. But it's fun. For me, it's less about the food. The food's always great. Don't get me wrong. It's less about the food than it is really about being together. Thanksgiving for our family was always, we all got together. We all loved Thanksgiving. The kids, the grandkids, everybody was into it. We had friends and neighbors come over and join us. And it's going to be a different year for us this year. And
I think for everybody.
Yeah, I'm a little sad about that. We've been trying to think about what we're going to do for Thanksgiving week this year. We're a little fragmented. We're all over the place. And some of us are in Florida. Some of us are in New York.
Yeah.
There's a funny Siegel family fact for you.
What's that?
I'm going to say it's about 10 years ago, my older brother Hank got a film production crew to come in on Thanksgiving 2010 and do a Siegel family Thanksgiving movie. So I have like a 2-hour-long piece about our family being together on Thanksgiving, and we all have it, and we watch it every year. I'm going to watch it 5 times this year.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving is a special one for us, and I'm glad. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So favorite food? What's your favorite Thanksgiving food?
I like the stuffing with some gravy on it.
Classic. All right, so last question today.
Okay.
What are you excessive about? When are you a more is more person?
Doing a job right, a job well done. I'll stop at nothing. I don't care how long it takes. But if it's not right, it's not right. I need to make it right. And I don't necessarily need to make it right for you. I don't necessarily need to make it right because it gets a better result in the marketplace, although I believe that it does. I need to make it right for me because I just can't sleep at night if it's not right. My dad gave me that. There's only one way to do something. It's the right way. We don't cut corners. Perfection is something to strive for. Excellence is something to strive for. And every day I try and strive for excellence. And excellence comes in a lot of different forms. The job that you do, how you carry yourself, how people remember you, how you speak to people, how you treat others. So I'm looking to achieve all of that stuff under the umbrella of excellence. But a job well done to me is never done until it's done right and perfectly. For whatever I'm worth to young people, I hope that they learn and appreciate and take away from their interaction with me that a job well done is superiorly important. And superiorly, is that a word? Supremely important?
It is now. Supremely important.
Supremely important?
Yeah. I like superiorly though.
Yeah.
Right. We'll patent that.
That wasn't a job well done on my part grammatically.
Well, thanks so much, Peter. I appreciate you
George.
taking the time, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.